Welcome to the Touch MBA Admissions Podcast. Do you need help figuring out which schools to apply to or how to get into the world's top MBA programs? Hey, you're not alone. Join thousands of others on this podcast and on our site, touchmba.com, as they seek the admissions edge. And now, here's your host, Darren Joe.
Hey guys, it's Darren, and welcome to the Touch MBA podcast, where we're all about helping you find your best fit MBA programs that will really help launch your career and that will give you a great life experience. This week, I spoke with the admissions team from Columbia. It's the first time on this podcast that I've spoken to multiple members of the admissions team, and I think it's symbolic of Columbia Business School itself. My biggest takeaway from our conversation was just the sense of opportunity, of possibility when going to a school like Columbia because of the size of the school and its long history and tradition and the number of students and the number of alumni and the number of faculty and the number of electives and the number of business leaders, over 450 business leaders visiting the school each year, and of course being in New York City. And I think that's really awe-inspiring. On the flip side, I think that when you're applying to a school like Columbia, you really need to do a lot of self-reflection and a lot of research on how you plan to take advantage of a school like Columbia with all its resources and how you plan to contribute to the Columbia MBA family as well. The admissions team, they talk about new developments that are happening at the school. We also talk in detail about the application process, and each of the team members gives their best tips. And we also talk about how the school supports students in their career searches. So I think you'll really enjoy this episode. And of course, if you want to get some free school selection help and admissions advice, you can head over to touchmba.com. Let us know about yourself, let us know your profile, and we'd be happy to help assist you in figuring out which schools best fit you. So on to the episode. I'm really excited to have our next school on the show. And in this episode, we have the whole admissions team from Columbia Business School joining us on this podcast. So I'm just really excited to learn more about this top-ranked program and what makes it unique. Thank you, Columbia, for coming on the show.
We're happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yes. And so since there's a number of you, would you mind quickly just introducing yourself so our listeners know who's on the call?
All right. Hi, my name is Amanda Carlson. I'm certainly a proud member of the Columbia admissions team, and I am the Assistant Dean of Admissions here at the Business School.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christina Shelby. I'm also, of course, a proud member of the admissions team, and I'm a director.
Hi, my name is Michael Robinson, also a proud alum of the program as well, and been here now for 12 years.
Hi, I'm Annie Carnahan. I'm an Associate Director of Admissions and a proud member of the Admissions Committee.
Hi, everyone. My name is Matthew Mall. I am also a proud member of the Admissions Committee, and I just started the Executive MBA program, so I'm also a student.
Great. Thank you. So Christina, Amanda, Michael, Annie, and Matthew, I just want to thank you for your time and for joining the show. So let's get straight into the heart of it. And what makes the Columbia MBA unique from other top-ranked business schools?
Okay, so this is Amanda, and I'm going to take a stab at answering this. I think one of the things that I'd like to do are point to a couple of attributes that make our program special. And first, we're really fortunate at Columbia to have unparalleled access to so many business leaders across various industries. As your listeners probably know, New York is home to thousands of multinational companies, which really means that our students have this real-time access concurrently as they're learning about business fundamentals, so they know exactly what's going on in industry. And I guess what this really means for Columbia students is that they have unparalleled career opportunities, and certainly New York is a socially vibrant environment. I mean, it's New York after all. So I think, first of all, the unparalleled access to business leaders is one part of the program that makes it pretty special. And then second, our faculty members. They're really some of the best minds in their fields, operating, as I mentioned before, in New York, which is the world's business hub. And their groundbreaking research really influences so many business practices across a variety of sectors. And so Columbia's faculty teach, I think, what we would call transformative and an evolving curriculum that develops our students who we hope are going to be leaders who are poised to create opportunity, identify opportunities, create opportunities in any environment, and also, of course, regardless of what the economic landscape is going to look like. And our research faculty are joined by practitioners from almost every industry and function as well, and they come to the school as adjunct faculty to share this practical kind of hands-on knowledge that they're bringing from their jobs to the students in the classroom. And so I think for each intake of the Columbia program, we do have a variety of them. The full-time MBA program, we have an August start or a January start, and the executive program, the executive MBA program, we have 5 different intakes for that as well. You know, our admissions team really seeks to enroll people who are high achievers, and high achievers who are coming from around the world. We actually just admitted a class that came on Sunday for our full-time August intake, and about 40% of that group was international by citizenship, and I think they've represented 56 different countries. And so I guess one of the things I also want to point out is that at Columbia, our students enjoy a collaborative, inclusive, and diverse culture that's going to encourage an open exchange of ideas. And so we hear time and time again from our students, they find here a supportive network and certainly an opportunity to thrive. But I'm sure you're going to learn a little bit more about these various attributes from Christina, Michael, Annie, and Matthew as we continue throughout the podcast. But I hope that kind of gives you a pretty good overview of what we think makes Columbia special.
Yeah, and there's so much to unpack from that answer, but one question I have right away is when you talked about your first point about unparalleled access to business leaders, and I know on your website you say that, you know, more top business leaders visit your business school than any other business school in the world. How is that organized? You know, is it students who are bringing in these business leaders, or like how does that work? And I guess I'm just trying to get at the common week for a student. How would that student encounter, you know, these great business leaders that are in New York or elsewhere?
Right. I don't think that I'd be able to give you a specific example of what a typical week looks like for students, because it's going to change so much from week to week depending on what's going on at any given course of the season, whether the students are in exams, whether recruiting is going on, whether it's kind of the season for different student conferences that are going to take place. But how these guest speakers are organized and arranged are through a variety of ways. They're organized, one, through the students in terms of conferences, again, that the students will organize, through the different club activities. There's certain time during the course of the day, twice a week for a couple of hours in the afternoon that's dedicated as club time for students, and students will, again, at that point, ask a variety of alumni speakers to come back or career coaches to come and speak with their organization. Certainly through the Office of External Relations, there are speakers that come. So it's through a whole variety of ways. And one thing I do want to make sure that I note is every year, I think the last number that I saw was there are about 450 speakers who do come to campus. And if you think about how many days there are in the year, how many days our students are actually in class, that's a lot of choice and flexibility that's given to our students in terms of what they're going to do and how they're going to spend their days depending on what their priorities are. So it's a really exciting opportunity, I think.
If I could build on that as well, I mean, this is Michael Robinson. In the 12 years I've been here, I've been at events that have featured Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, prime ministers of countries, people who are Nobel laureates and so on. So the variety of intellectual capital that we see here on campus is just amazing.
Thank you for that. And are there any exciting new developments or initiatives taking place at Columbia Business School?
Yes, there are. This is Christina, and I'm excited to speak to this question. There's obviously a lot of stuff happening on campus and many things that we could talk about, but there's 2 specific new developments that I wanted to address today. The first is related to our core curriculum and some cutting-edge developments on that front. And the second is related to the resources that we're offering our students in the realm of entrepreneurship. So first, in speaking to the core, Columbia continues to refine the core curriculum, and the most exciting development in that area within the last year or so has been the introduction of a brand new course that's called LEAD, People, Teams, and Organizations. And it's taught as a block week course actually during the second week of orientation. So it's the first academic exposure that our students are really getting, and it's a class that provides such a phenomenal sort of baseline on which to grow and develop throughout the rest of their 2 years here. So the purpose of this class, it's really designed to prepare students to grow and develop as leaders and to learn more about themselves and what they're seeking to develop individually as they continue working through the leadership curriculum here. And it's taught by a means of a combination of experiential learning, role-playing, individual assessment, 360 feedback from fellow students, for instance, and a number of case studies, of course. And it's actually co-taught by a number of our leading faculty members. So I'll just name them quickly, those who are directly involved with this. Modupe Akinola, Adam Galinsky, Michael Morris, and Kathy Phillips. So they comprise the core teaching team who oversees this class. So I think it's a really exciting introduction. The students have had such positive feedback about it, and it really sort of exemplifies the innovative and robust core that Columbia Business School is seeking to provide our students. The second subject I wanted to address briefly is related to entrepreneurship. So as many schools have, Columbia has seen a real trend towards greater interest in the realm of entrepreneurship and the startup space, of course, and with New York City becoming more and more of a tech hub and growing references to Silicon Alley, there have been some exciting opportunities for Columbia to really dig into that and get involved. So one example that I wanted to speak to related to that is the Columbia Startup Lab. This is a new initiative, a co-working and incubator space located in West Soho, and it's for first-year Columbia University alumni. So it's run in partnership with Columbia Business School's Eugene Lang Center for Entrepreneurship, Columbia Entrepreneurship, which is the university-wide entrepreneurship sort of support center, and the Engineering School, Columbia College, and the School of International and Public Affairs. So the lab itself accommodates 28 business school entrepreneurs who, upon admission, actually get to stay in the space for up to a year following graduation. So it provides sort of office startup space. And it gives our students, who tend to be the 28 business school entrepreneurs that go into this, are really our most promising and dedicated entrepreneurs. So it provides them with a strong ecosystem in which to live and successfully grow their businesses immediately upon graduation, so they can really build up and further develop their business ideas with the continued kind of third-year support of the institution. And you also sort of mentioned kind of looking into the future. How does the school plan to, evolve or change? Really exciting development that we're looking forward to is the construction of the new business school campus in Manhattanville. That's not actually going to happen until about 2018. That we're looking right now is probably the year we're going to move into that new campus. But it's going to be a really exciting development for the school, and we're eager to see where that takes us.
Yeah, and I mean, I saw that entrepreneurship and innovation are definite focuses of your program. And, it's great to hear about this new incubator for alumni. But what would you say to entrepreneurs? Because I think a lot of our listeners do want to eventually start their own businesses, but are just concerned about, obviously, the time, cost of business school, the tuition of business school. Do you have any examples of students who have really come into Columbia and really made the most of those 2 years to launch their enterprises?
Sure, definitely. So one of our most successful alumna actually in the entrepreneurship space is named Shazi Visram, and she is the founder of a company that's now called Happy Family, but was founded under the name Happy Baby. And she actually, this company at Columbia Business School, when she was here, it was an idea that she had that she wanted to develop a company that offered organic baby food. So a small idea, and working with resources within the Lang Center for Entrepreneurship and many of our dedicated professors who were eager to help her through that. She was successful in launching that company. As I said, it's now called Happy Family. And I think it was last year or the year prior that it sold to Danone for something like $100 million. So that's, a hugely successful example for us, and we're so thrilled to have her as a part of the Columbia family, and she's also now a member of the school's Board of Overseers. There are a bunch of other students, have some more recent startups that are still really growing in that space, a couple of others that I could mention just off the top of my head. The website ZocDoc is a company started by our alum Cyrus Masumi. Another alumnus of ours, Robert Refkin, started the website Urban Compass, over the last couple of years, which is the New York City kind of apartment search portal. So there's a number of things like that going on. Those are just a few specific examples for you.
Great. And I'll be sure to link to all three of those companies that you mentioned to their websites so our listeners can take a look at those. And how would you describe the student culture at Columbia for especially our international listeners who may not have a chance to step on campus?
This is Michael Robinson. I'll take that question. First, I'll say the culture here, the students are very dynamic. They're passionate, engaged, they're supportive. They're very global in focus. As Amanda said, about 40% of the class was born outside the U.S. They're inclusive. They have an entrepreneurial mindset. They're very socially minded. The student culture here is fundamentally collaborative, and the school works to support this culture in a number of ways, right? So success is rooted in the idea of teamwork that's ingrained into the community from day one. So community building starts right at the very beginning of the MBA program. So we're actually in the midst of our orientation right now, and the class that kind of comes in is broken down into smaller subgroups that we call clusters here that have about 65 to 70 students, and those students take all their core classes together. And each cluster is a microcosm of the entire class, so it's very diverse in background, people from about 50 countries, speaking about at least 35 languages each year. So it's made up from people all over the world, a wealth of very different skills. One of the things that people say here very often is that they learn as much from their classmates as their professors. So there's a peer learning model that we have here that drives our process, and that's really embodied in the cluster system. Now, each cluster is further subdivided into smaller learning teams with about 5 students, and each learning team will have very diverse professional and personal backgrounds. So again, that fosters the idea that students need to learn as much from each other as from their classmates. And then what kind of drives the orientation process is the second-year students that we select through a very selective process we call them peer advisors, and they run the first-year orientation, and they act as a resource to first-year students throughout the academic year. And this is a volunteer program, and again, it's highly selected. So you have about 70 members in the fall, about 30 in the spring, and they go through this rigorous application process. They get specialized leadership training with a strong focus on team building. And the peer advisor team has several purposes. They serve as a resource for first-year students in helping make that transition to being a student again possible. They really help and reinforce the collaborative student culture here. They focus on community, and they support the new students through teamwork aspects of the first-year curriculum. And then, in addition to undergoing these specialized training, the peer advisors they volunteer part of their summer and winter vacations to design, organize, and implement the orientation program. But again, the peer advisors, their role doesn't end when orientation draws to a close. Throughout the entire academic year, they work with first-year students to help them optimize their student experience. They answer questions, offer advice about academics, school resources, the career search, elective courses, professors, New York City, and anything else. And you mentioned the internationals. I mean, we actually give international students an earlier orientation so they get more access to helping to get used to living in New York City. We have close to 100 student clubs on campus. Many of them are international in focus, and those students help support the folks who are coming in as well.
As Columbia has 2 intakes, one in the fall and one in January, I'm just curious how those classes interact. And I don't know, strangely, Columbia seems to have just almost infinite, but just so many resources available to students. You know, you're in this amazing city, you're surrounded by top-notch faculty, and you have 700, 800 classmates. So I guess my second question is, do students often feel lost? Because there's, 2 different terms, there's so many students, there's so many resources. Could that be difficult to navigate sometimes?
This is Christina. I can jump in and help answer that. The school really does as much as possible to make our new students feel at home here. And I think the cluster system that Michael just went into in detail really gives them that immediate social and academic network. These are their new best friends. So learning teams that they're assigned to within the cluster are an even closer network of 5 or 6 people that they're working with very regularly. So they immediately get new members of their social network to be attached to who are part of this Columbia Business School community. And of course, there are a million different things going on. Obviously, there's so many different resources on campus, as you said, and in New York. And certainly, if you're not prepared for that, that can sometimes be overwhelming. And that's one of the reasons, and we'll get into this probably later in the podcast, but that's one of the reasons that we do look for students who are very well directed in why they're in business school and what they want to do here, so that they're aware of the resources that we have and are focused and really immediately able to hit the ground running. But there's such a wonderful group of staff members here, and members of the administration, the faculty, the peer advisors Michael was talking about, and just the entirety of the student community really works to make every new member of Columbia Business School feel at home and comfortable and cared for.
And this is Amanda. One thing I want to make sure that I add is that there are different leadership opportunities that are reserved for folks who are coming in the J term. So, for example, in the different clubs, there are J term VP positions that are available. So that way, the students aren't going to be missing out on assuming these leadership opportunities once they hit the ground running at school. So they're there for the taking, and it's just going to be a question of, again, who within the J term class will volunteer to participate.
And I think Mike Lombardo was a J-term student last year who actually was selected by the entire class to lead, actually fund this entire student government, and he was actually from the J-term. So the point is that the people in the J-term are very involved and active, and a very important part of the overall community.
Great. Is Columbia particularly reputable in any discipline? I think when people hear Columbia, they automatically think finance. Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Hi, this is Matthew again, and I'm happy to take that question. And I think to be a great business leader, no matter the size of the company or no matter the sector you plan on going into, you have to be able to speak a lot of different languages. You have to be able to master many different disciplines. And I think what Christina was talking about earlier, the core, this is a big reason why we put so much emphasis and development into our core curriculum. Within the core, you're taught a lot of different fundamental skills that are going to be necessary for you to be successful no matter what direction you want to go in your career. Beyond that, Columbia is a phenomenal educational experience. There's a wide variety of resources, a lot of different industries represented, from finance to healthcare, marketing, real estate, retail, luxury goods, social enterprise. Really, whatever your interests are as a student, you're going to be able to find classes that are tailored to that. Something that is very unique to Columbia, kind of in that finance realm that you were talking about, is our value investing program, which is delivered every year by the Hallbrunn Center for Graham and Dodd Investing. Every year, they select 40 students who apply during their first year to be part of the value investing program, so that in their second year, they go through this very rigorous curriculum to become value investors. And then they even have a chance to people like Warren Buffett, who I'm sure many of your listeners are familiar with, and perhaps one of our most well-known alums.
I hope they're familiar with him. But yes, that sounds really interesting. I feel almost strange asking this question again, but why New York City to get your MBA?
Well, I'm Annie Carnahan, and I would love to answer that question. There are so many reasons. Well, for instance, that we describe Columbia Business School as existing both physically and intellectually really at the very center of business, and we're better to pursue an MBA than at the very center of business. Our New York City location really allows us to offer students unparalleled access to leaders from across different industries, in the classroom, throughout the city, and around the globe. And in addition to the guest lecturers who visit our classrooms regularly, programs like our Executives in Residence, which integrates senior executives into the life of the school, and the Discipline Leadership Series, which brings intellectual leaders to campus and really gives our students incredible real-world insights on a daily basis. And also because of our New York City location, we're able to offer extensive opportunities for our students to gain practical and real-world experience during their MBA education. A great example of this is the master classes, which are hands-on, project-based electives really designed to challenge second-year MBA students to master the core concepts that they learned in the first year by applying them to contemporary business problems. So projects require students to make managerial decisions or recommendations on real-world problems that companies need solved. So classes are really tied to external organizations that evaluate, and in many cases, they'll often adopt what the students recommend to them. And each of the master classes really focuses on a specific industry context, so consulting, real estate, entrepreneurship, and then they'll draw significantly from the professional community via interaction with student team projects and project sponsors, guest speakers, adjunct faculty members, and also, of course, alumni participation. With these substantial projects and practitioner involvement, master classes provide students with a unique bridge between MBA theory and real-world practice, which is something that we really value at the school. And I think, of course, just sort of finally, New York is just a really exciting and diverse city to live in, and it's really like no other place in the world.
Could you describe to our listeners like where the Columbia campus is in relation to places they might have heard of like Times Square or the financial district of New York?
So we're uptown. We're located in Morningside Heights. We're really just a quick train ride away from Times Square and downtown in the financial district. We're located just off of the 1 line. And so people will live directly around campus or anywhere. Really in New York, it's so accessible, and people get here very quickly from around New York. And I think that's the great thing is that you can just jump on a train and be downtown in 20 minutes and be able to have a coffee chat with an alum who's working, at the company that you're interested in working at, and they have your dream job, and you're able to connect with them so quickly. And that's something that would be really difficult if we weren't located just really at the center of everything.
This is Amanda. One thing, I just want to brag about Annie for 1 second. But so once you do get off the 1 train and come visit campus, Annie has worked for the past year or so on putting together an interactive campus map, which the candidates can utilize when they come to give kind of a self-guided tour. And there are QR codes where you can scan, and different faculty members or administrators or students will pop up from on your phone and give a little bit of a testimonial about kind of where you are on campus or what you can expect in a certain area. So I just want to make sure that everyone knows Annie put that together. We're extraordinarily proud of what she's done, and we're hoping, of course, that it will be really helpful for students as they come to visit the campus once they come to Morningside Heights.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's one of the videos is focused specifically on Morningside Heights. So if people want to get an idea a little bit more about the neighborhood that they would be going to school in, that's a great video to check out, and you can watch it on our website as well.
Great. I will link to that. And yeah, I mean, I can just speak from my own experience living in New York City. There's something for everyone there, for sure. I was really into jazz, and I just loved all the jazz clubs there. If we could talk about admissions now and switch gears. Because so many of our listeners, they'll be interested in Columbia, but want to know the inside scoop on admissions. So first question is, what are the fit qualities you're looking for from MBA applicants? And are you looking for different things from your 2-year students coming in the fall and your J-term students starting at the beginning of the year?
Okay, so this is Amanda, and I'm going to field these questions. And they're great questions, and one we're actually asked quite often when we're on the road. I just got back from Washington, D.C. yesterday. I think Christina was in Atlanta and Boston, and there are a variety of people on our team who are in Miami. I think Dana's heading down to Mexico City right now, or maybe Monterrey, Mexico. Our teammate Felicia is just going to be coming back from a swing in Chile and Argentina and Brazil. Morgan's been in Peru and Venezuela, a whole variety of places, and the team will be coming to Europe in a few weeks and Asia and all these other spots in the world. So foremost, if people can come to the different events that we're going to have in their local areas, we would definitely encourage that, because not only will they be able to hear from members of the admissions committee, but they'll also have the opportunity to meet alumni who have gone through the program. So that hopefully will give them a little bit of insight into who has gone through the program, what are their backgrounds like, what type of people are they, hopefully they're going to be engaging and dynamic and curious about the candidates. So I guess while every student who joins the Columbia community is certainly special, they're unique, they do share some defining qualities, I would say. So I know that our students, when we're reviewing applications, we're looking for people who are really driven by a strong work ethic, and we're looking for people who are ready and eager to build and foster both kind of professional and personal relationships here at Columbia. And we want people who are determined to make a real impact on the world in their chosen field, whether it's through social enterprise, through impact investing, through entrepreneurship, through retail or healthcare or real estate, fill in the blank, whatever that chosen field may be or area of interest. And I think really in addition to these qualities, we're looking for students who are interested in impacting and contributing to Columbia and to the community while they're here as students. And what I really mean by this is that we're invested in finding students who want to take ownership of their experiences here. I mentioned the peer advisors a little bit earlier, for example. There are students who have gone through a semester or two already and are really going to help to shape and define the culture of the following incoming class. And so we want, again, these students to help shape their time as students, and if it means identifying aspects of the program that they think can be made even better, then that's what we're going to expect that they're going to do. So those are the types of people I think we're looking for. And you mentioned the January intake in the second part of your question, and as we mentioned before, we refer to the January intake as the J-term. And the J-term is a 16-month accelerated program for which there is no summer internship. It really can be geared towards people who may be company sponsored, they might be entrepreneurial, in a family business, or somebody who doesn't need that internship in order to find a job post-MBA. And so the accelerated program, or this J-term, reduces the opportunity cost for people for being out of the work during the time that they're pursuing their MBAs. And J-term students attend orientation, obviously starting in January, while the August intake students are starting their second semester. And then they finish their core classes over the summer, while the August intake students are doing their summer internships. So I've already kind of said who generally enrolls in the J-term, but for candidates who may be interested in learning a little bit more, earlier this summer in July, we had a session on campus that was called Spotlight on January, and this was a panel session featuring a member of our career management team, as well as two current students and an alum who, the students obviously are going through the program and the alum has graduated and they've been part of the J-term. So each of these panelists had a different background. The alum, he actually, one of our favorite people, we met him as a prospective student at a Spotlight on a military event that we had. And he was a Navy SEAL who now works in finance. He runs his own hedge fund. One of the current students, she's a gal who's company sponsored. She was from Russia. And the other is an American girl who worked for Warby Parker prior to coming to school, and now she's a budding entrepreneur. So this might be a helpful session to watch for those who are interested in learning a little bit more about what makes the J-term a great option for those who want to earn a full MBA, one with 4 semesters, but doing so kind of in an expedited amount of time, given that they are all run concurrently. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, and do you expect your J-term candidates to have a more defined post-MBA career goals, given the fact that, they won't be doing internships?
Well, I don't think defined is the word I would necessarily use, but I think that they need to have much more relevant, perhaps, work experience to what they want to do. They are also people who we know certainly can hustle in terms of finding opportunities or creating opportunities without that summer internship. And so I don't think it's necessarily they have as defined career aspirations, but they've got different options and are going to be resilient in terms of looking for different positions post-MBA.
Yeah, and that's the other question I had about what you shared, in that, one of the sort of qualities that a lot of Columbia MBA students have is this work ethic, and for your J-term candidates, the hustle, the resiliency. How can applicants show this in their application without saying, I work hard? Because I think a lot of applicants struggle with this in terms of, how do I show these qualities? Would you have any tips there?
Yeah, certainly, we ask for 3 essays, and I think some of those essays certainly would lend themselves favorably to providing examples of this, but also, in the resume, right? In terms of seeing success, that probably would have been the result of some hard work. And I think in the resume, that's certainly one place where we'll look for that. In addition, through the interview. So sharing with our alumni, actually, let me back up. Interviews are conducted by alumni in the candidate's local area, and interviews are so the only thing that the interviewer knows about the candidate is what the candidate will tell him or her. So that's also another great opportunity to share stories and add a little bit more color and flavor to the candidate's background that the alum will eventually end up sharing with the admissions committee. So I think that would be another great place to show a little bit more about hustle and resiliency.
Great. And could you just quickly walk us through the life of an application? So yeah, our listeners understand that process.
Sure. This is Christina, and I'll be addressing that question. And this is a really important question for those considering Columbia alongside some of our other peer institutions, because we do have a pretty unique process, and it's important applicants are aware of that. So specifically, we have a rolling admissions process, and this means that we are reviewing applications in the order they're received basically as soon as they're submitted after the application has become available. So our application tends to open up every May, sort of middle of the month of May. For our January entry, the deadline for applications is early October. For our August entry, we've got either an early decision or a regular decision application, and there's different deadlines for those throughout the year, with the final deadline being in April. But our evaluation process for both terms of entry is rolling. So as I said, we're reviewing applications in the order they're received. We're releasing decisions as they are made, often almost on a daily basis. So the timeline for that, we do try to be as clear as possible in communicating to applicants when they will potentially hear from us regarding stages of their application review. So we guarantee that within 6 weeks of the date an application goes under review, we will provide the applicant with either an invitation to interview or we will issue a denial. Should the applicant be invited to interview, he or she would then schedule a meeting with an alum. As Amanda just mentioned, our alumni do our admissions interviewing for us. And then within 2 weeks of the date we receive the interview report from the alum, and that's something we track very closely internally, we would then provide a final decision, which by final decision I mean either admit, deny, or waitlist. So of course the waitlist process can extend beyond that. And again, this timeline applies for both terms of entry, August and January. So the sort of 6 weeks, 2 weeks deadlines that I've just discussed, those are that's the longest possible time it can take. And so depending on the volume of applications that we're looking at, we can move through them at a much quicker pace. And often applicants are able to hear from us, even within a month with a final decision. It really kind of depends where we are in the year.
So yeah, I guess related to that is, what is considered an early application and a late application as you have these rolling admissions process? For example, if your deadline for the fall intake is early April, is applying in early April just too late, or even in March?
This is Michael. I'll take that question. And first, basically, provide some additional context, because once it's early and late, we have something called early decisions. So I just want to clarify what these things are and for the listeners. So for August entry, we have two different kinds of applications. We have early decision and regular decision. And the early decision, that's for the applicants who are convinced that Columbia is the right place for them. And if admitted, you pledge to withdraw your applications from other programs, and you have to pay a non-refundable deposit of $6,000. Applying early decision gives one the best chance to be admitted. The class is wide open. The applications there are due by October 8th of this year. And then for those who don't apply early decision, you can apply regular decision, as Christina said, through mid-April. One important point of consideration for those who are applying regular decision, though, is that we have a merit-based fellowship deadline, and that's always within early January. I think this year's January 7th. Yes, January 7th. And historically, around this deadline, that's when we actually see the largest number of applications coming in. So to put your best foot forward, we recommend that people do what they can to apply before that merit-based fellowship deadline. Now, of course, we're going to admit great people who apply very late, But just keep in mind that admissions gets more competitive the later you are in the cycle.
Right. This is Amanda. One thing I want to make sure that I add is, look, we expect that people are going to be shopping around and looking at different programs as well. So we do tend to receive the bulk of our applications in the regular decision period, and that's also when most people are admitted. So I want to be very clear about that. Just because somebody wants to be admitted doesn't mean that they should apply during early decision because they think, well, gee, this gives me my best opportunity to be admitted, and if I apply in regular decision, I'm not going to be admitted. Most people apply in regular decision. That's when most people are admitted. So I want to make sure that we put that out there so that people recognize, obviously, it's a big decision, and we want people to ensure that they're going to be matriculating into the best program for them.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, I think it's clear. So you have the early decision, October 8th, and then you have January 7th, which is a merit scholarship deadline. So between those two dates, that's when you're going to see the majority of your applications and admits.
Sure. So between those two dates is probably when we'll see the majority of applications come in. As we process through those applications, we'll be making admissions decisions throughout. So I wouldn't necessarily say that's when most of the admits would be released, but that's when the applications are coming in.
Okay. And I mean, it'd be great to hear, because I'm so lucky to have this whole team here. What are your top tips to applicants to improve their chances of admissions?
So I'll take that question. Hi, this is Matthew again. I think what's really important to think about before I kind of give an answer is that this is a holistic process. So there isn't an exact formula that we follow in admissions, but there are some things to keep in mind when you're thinking about the application process. And we really want people to think about fit. Fit is incredibly important to us when we're considering applicants, and also from the applicant's perspective as far as do they fit. So do your research and find out as much as you can about the school. Sit in on a class, meet with current students, attend some of our other on-campus events. And for those who aren't able to travel to New York, try to find time to attend one of our virtual sessions and also reach out to current students through our website. It's also really important to be genuine in your essays. The best application essays that we see are those that really give us a sense of who people are and really let us know who the person is behind the application. We want to understand what drives you, what interests you, and why Columbia makes sense for you. So tell us your story rather than trying to shape your story to what you think the admissions office wants to hear. And finally, we suggest that people apply before the deadlines. Apply as early as possible because we are rolling admissions.
Yeah, and do you have any tips for applicants who are going to interview with Columbia? Would you have any tips there on how they could best present themselves and best tell their stories?
As far as for the interview, the applicants should keep in mind they're going to be interviewing with an alum. So the alums are going to be looking at them from an alumni perspective. They are only going to have their resumes. So interviews are blind in a lot of ways. The alum won't have the recommendations. They won't have the essays. So they're going to be looking at the prospective student as an alum would. So would I want this person as part of my network? Would I want to be in class with this person? So that's something to keep in mind as an applicant when you're interviewing with an alum.
I would also just add, this is Christina, I would add to what Matthew had said, that it's really important to think about your business school interview like a job interview. Approach it professionally, dress professionally, be prepared with thoughtful questions about the school and perhaps even about the alum that they're meeting with and their background. And those should be questions that hopefully demonstrate a certain level of research about the school. This person's going to want to know that you've really put your time into preparing for the interview and that you know kind of the basics that can be found on the website, but that you have some more thoughtful questions about, your potential individual experience at the school and perhaps what the alumnus or the alumna has experienced him or herself.
Great. And if we could now turn our attention to the financing. of the program. Could you let us know what percentage of your class gets scholarships and what are your average scholarship amounts? And of course, how can applicants improve their chances of winning scholarship funding?
Yes, this is Amanda Carlson, and so I guess I want to take a step back before addressing those questions specifically to kind of give you a better indication of how our financial aid is offered. And so I just want to let folks know that at Columbia we have both merit-based fellowships, which are for the August entry students, and then need-based scholarships, for which both the August and January entry students would be considered. So merit-based funding really ranges from a few $1,000s for 1 year to full tuition fellowships for 2 years. And in order to be considered for the merit-based fellowships, what somebody would need to do is just get an application in for the August intake by our merit-based fellowship deadline. This year, that merit-based fellowship deadline is on January 7th in 2015. The fellowships are awarded really based on the application content, and you don't need to submit, candidates don't need to submit any supplemental materials. The only thing that one needs to do in order to be considered is to check a box. So say, yes, I want to be considered, and everybody should go ahead and do that. That's a pretty easy application process. Need-based scholarships are a little bit different, and those applications are submitted through financial aid, and they are considered following your admission to Columbia Business School. To answer the specific question you asked, about 40% of our current students receive some sort of funding from the school, and the average award across fellowships and scholarships is approximately $16,000 US.
Great. And how important are GMAT scores in winning merit scholarships?
Well, I think it depends, and I hate to ever say, gee, one should go to the website to look and see what the criteria is, but there are some of our fellowships are given by private donors, some are given by members of our Board of Overseers, some are given by the school, so the amount of each fellowship is different, as is the criteria by which one would be considered. So, for example, there are academic-based fellowships, and therefore the GMAT would be something that's really quite important. That said, there are other fellowships where the academic component isn't part of the consideration. So the answer is, and students will learn a lot about the answers, it depends in business school, because that happens. It depends. So that's my answer for you.
Okay, I'll be sure to link to your scholarship page so our listeners can, find out more about those scholarships. And do you have any last financing tips for our listeners who are planning to apply? Right.
Look, we always encourage people to just plan ahead and save as much as they can, because we know that the MBA it's a significant investment, both in terms of obviously your time and your energy and, of course, just money. So before candidates submit their admissions applications, they really ought to consider how they're going to finance this degree and be prepared to fund the full cost of the program, as fellowships and scholarships aren't guaranteed. That may not be a very popular thing to say, but it's the way that people should think about it. And lastly, also really make sure to save for the summertime before and after school, since not all financial aid resources are available during periods of non-enrollment. So keep that in mind as well. So plan ahead and save.
All right. And if we can now talk about careers for Columbia MBAs and alumni. It's one of my favorite parts of the podcast. And so can you let us know what makes Columbia special from a jobs and career perspective?
Sure. This is Christina, and I can speak to that question. I first want to kind of explain how we refer internally to the job search and career development. The term that we have for the office that houses all of this at Columbia is the Career Management Center, because we really think about business school not only as a two-year opportunity to look for the next best step professionally, but really an opportunity to look at ways in which you can continue your career management and development during and post the MBA all the way through the rest of your career. So the individuals here that work within the Career Management Center, of course, work to assist students in finding the right job for them post MBA, but also to teach lifelong career management skills, which is really truly important. So in speaking to what's unique about Columbia in this regard, there's two general topics that I want to cover, both of which are, of course, very much related. And the first is the resources that we offer, and the second is our location. So speaking first to resources, there's a few different points I want to make on that. We have a really, really high caliber of advisors who work here at the business school in the Career Management Center. Many of them actually have MBAs themselves, which is pretty unique for a business school career management office. And all of them have come from or have substantial corporate backgrounds. And so in the combination of all these different sort of skill sets and their education and their experiences really allows them to expertly guide our students based on their own personal experiences and industry knowledge. In partnership with these advisors who work here at the business school, we have over 25 career coaches. And these are mostly alumni, and all of whom have over 5 years of professional experience, most often in a specific industry. And these individuals will give very targeted advice to students in one-on-one meetings or informational sessions who are looking to gain some specific knowledge about one industry or a functional area. So they can really add the specifics of their experience and the skill set that they've gained in the workforce in the advising that our students are getting. Third, in the realm of resources, I want to talk about our extensive executives in residence program. I think we currently have 16 executives in residence on campus, and these are people who have been through an entire career. So they are semi-retired, if not almost fully retired, and really their primary role here on campus is to be advisors and mentors for our students. And so it's very easy for our students to set up one-on-one meetings with these individuals who are people like Don Waite, who has more than 35 years of experience at McKinsey, many of those years on the managing board, could not be more of an expert in the realm of management consulting, and our students can set up meetings with him. He's just one example. There are 15 others. So it's a great opportunity for our students who are, mired in the job search of what am I going to do post-MBA to take a step back and get that kind of 30,000-foot CEO level perspective of their job search and where they're headed. Finally, related to resources, we have second-year career fellows. So this gets back to something that we've discussed already, related to the Columbia community and the supportive kind of inclusive nature of that community. So these are second-year students who are basically mentoring first-year students. They are offering peer advice based on their own recruiting experience, and we have over 50 of them. And each student, as they come into Columbia Business School, is assigned into a career group from day one. And these groups are led by second-year career fellows and really give our students a chance to offer and gain some personal and targeted support and advice in looking at and approaching their job search. So the second major point I wanted to make was related to location. And in many ways, our New York City location kind of speaks for itself, but it's certainly worth highlighting in discussing career management resources. So really, no school out there can match the opportunity provided by being in New York, whether it's high-powered speakers who are coming to campus and meeting our students, or whether it's the massive range of companies out in Manhattan, only a short sub-ride away that our students can meet with, and alumni who are in the area working at these organizations and companies with whom our students can set up informational interviews and build their network while they're students here. So there are seemingly an endless number of opportunities for our students to engage with New York City in being a part of Columbia Business School, as we say, at the very center of business.
Wow, that's just a wealth of resources that you spelled out. And how often can students reach out to the career advisors, the 25 career coaches, the 16 executives in residence? Is it easy for them to reach out to the support staff?
Absolutely, yeah. As soon as students come on campus, they are required to have initial introductory meetings with a resume review that every student goes through, a videotaped mock interview, which can be a slightly uncomfortable experience. It's a videotaped formal mock interview that then is watched back and you get some real, specific advice about how best to approach improving your presentation and capitalizing on the strengths that you already have. So those are some basic requirements, but the staff that we have here, the career coaches, the executives in residence, the career fellows, all have extensive open office hours that are, open for any student to sign up for at any time. And our career management team here is just incredibly wonderful in the amount of support and access that they offer to our students.
Yeah, and that's related to my other question with careers, which is, what advice do you give your incoming students to make the most of their time at Columbia to land their, target post-MBA jobs?
So this is Michael. I'll take that question. Any business school student will find that managing their time is the greatest struggle that they'll have during the first year. It's been said often that going to business school is akin to drinking water out of a fire hose. And given the dynamic energy that is New York City, our experience is actually a bit more intense. So we definitely have resources here that Christina kind of mentioned prior to that. But I think the folks kind of coming in, if you're focused and disciplined, you can take advantage in an effective, efficient way. So when you think about what happens, we have resources in the classroom in terms of academics. There are student club events or corporate events. There are stellar speakers on campus. In recent years, Bill Gates and Warren Buffett actually did a joint session together that was very well received by over 500 students. We also have what we call career groups, and that's something that's not found at our other schools, and that helps to ensure a targeted, time-efficient approach during the first 6 weeks. So we advise students who are coming in to use that time before matriculation to use our pre-MBA resources, to take a self-assessment tool, and use the resume builder to help basically get them on board more quickly. And then while they're at school, there are a huge range of resources, including our centers. So there's a real estate center, a healthcare center, et cetera, the Halbrand Center for Value Investing. And there are definitely a lot of people resources that can help students manage their time. But I think the quick summary statement is that folks who kind of come in with focus and take a disciplined approach will have a more efficient and a more effective process. Now, some students might want to explore a 2-year internship beginning in the spring, and that's especially for career switchers. And the Career Management Center will offer tremendous support for this as well. Networking is a key part of success. So many of our students are taking advantage of the location. There are over 3,000 corporate headquarters in New York City. So again, as Christina mentioned, everything is just a subway right away. The closing thing I want to say is that we offer this immersive, intensive academic program, and along the way, our students build very strong and powerful lifelong friendships, a powerful network, and they also have lots of fun as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned focus and a disciplined approach as, the big thing for our listeners and applicants to keep in mind. And I have one question. This kind of relates to, I guess, your admissions. How important is it for applicants to have very specific post-MBA career goals in their essays and in their application? Is it, critical for them to have a very clear idea of what they want to do?
Yes, so we definitely want people to come in with a focus and a plan. The reality is that the recruiting piece will start probably within 5 to 6 weeks after you start being on campus. Not actual interviews, but you'll have many corporate presentations. So the fact is you're going to be in front of recruiters very, very quickly. So if you kind of come in with a plan as or some sort of anchor, it helps people provide or find more direction as they make their ultimate career choice. The reality is that people also will sometimes change their minds over the course of the first 2 months, but it's important to come in with a plan and a focus.
What is the best way for candidates to contact students and alumni to get a firsthand experience of what's going on at Columbia?
Sure. So this is Matthew again. Hello, everyone. So I think one of the main resources prospective students and your listeners should take advantage of are our current students. Our Hermes Society are the volunteers who work directly with the admissions office at our on-campus events and also are on our website as a resource to candidates. And we have over 200 student volunteers who have made themselves available to prospective students. So we definitely encourage people to reach out to our Hermes Society. On our website, you can search by area of interest for the student and also their club affiliation and where they're from originally. So take advantage of that. We also invite people to campus. If you come to campus, you'll have the opportunity to sit in a class, and in those classes you can meet with current students afterwards for student chats. So look into that, take advantage of that. We are going to have classes start again sometime mid to late September. We also are on the road, and we're in cities around the world. Michael's going to be in China in just a few weeks, so on our website you can see where we're going next. Definitely see if we're coming to a city near you, and at these sessions you would have a chance to not only meet with admissions committee members but also our alumni attend these events. So that is a way to get a chance to meet people who've been through the entire process.
And is there anything else about the Columbia MBA that you just wish more candidates knew about?
Yeah, hi, this is Amanda. And I think even beyond what Matthew just mentioned, there's something on our website that was new last year called the Notes to the Next Class. And this is a platform for students and alums, the alumni from Columbia, to celebrate their experiences and to pass on their knowledge to future generations of Columbia students. And this platform really tells the story of alumni from across different generations of classes, and it celebrates their own experiences of many of the 41,000 alums who have gone through the program and have had the benefit of a Columbia MBA. So we would certainly encourage all prospective students to check out the photos, the stories that the community shared on the site, and really look at and learn from the advice that the alumni offer to help candidates as they apply, as they and hopefully are accepted, and tells them how to, or makes recommendations as to how to enrich their own experiences as MBA students. I know Matthew just mentioned that we're going to be traveling a lot and have been traveling a lot to meet prospective students around the world. If people have the opportunity, we would certainly encourage them to come to campus to get a firsthand feel for what it's like to be here, what it's like to be a student in New York City and specifically at Columbia Business School. We're always looking forward to welcoming folks to Morningside Heights. Our office happens to be open 6 days a week. On some certain Saturdays, there are information sessions generally geared towards the executive MBA population, but prospective students can come in and meet with a member of the admissions team or attend class visits, again, mostly for the executive MBA program. If it's not possible for people to come and visit, definitely join us or consider joining us for some of our virtual Spotlight On series that we're going to be hosting throughout the course of the fall. We'll be hosting weekly webinars or semi-weekly webinars that address different academic areas of focus. We'll have featured professors as well as current students who are focused on, for example, the retail area or entrepreneurship or healthcare. And I think it's just a great way for people to learn a little bit more about the program if possible. So again, check out Notes to the Next Class as well as our virtual Spotlight On series, or come to campus if they possibly can, because our admissions team is always eager to welcome folks to Columbia.
And I think this is a common question I get from a lot of applicants who come to Touch MBA, and that's, is it essential for an applicant to visit campus? In other words, does it hurt their chances if they're just not able to make that campus visit for whatever reason?
Absolutely not. I can't be any more direct than that. No, it doesn't hurt somebody's chances if they're not able to come. As we were talking about the MBA in general, it's expensive. It's a big investment in terms of time, energy, money, and that's why we're holding these virtual events and also traveling around the world, so candidates will have the opportunity to meet not just members of the admissions committee, but alumni from the program as well. So there are plenty of opportunities that we're trying to provide for folks to become familiar with Columbia's program, not all of which obviously are taking place on campus.
Yeah, and I just have one more question because we have a lot of international listeners on the show. And recently there's been a lot of news that it's been tougher for international MBAs to get jobs in the U.S. I'm just wondering if you guys have any advice to our international listeners about how they can best prepare themselves, to get the jobs they're looking for in the U.S.
Sure. This is Christina, and I can take that question for you. This is, of course, a common question that we receive as well at our information sessions on campus with those visiting from other countries or at our information sessions on the road. And I think it's a common concern for any non-U.S. student coming to a U.S. school. Many of them are hoping, to work here. Our school and our Career Management Center does as much as possible to market the value of our students to companies and organizations in New York and around the country and around the globe. And that, can be a really wonderful thing to help set our students up for success. What the school cannot control is whether or not a company chooses to sponsor a student for their H-1B visa or necessary to work here in the U.S. So that, is unfortunately a company decision and something that the school can't direct or control, but they can try to influence, and they certainly do as much as they can on that front. What I will say as far as just a piece of advice for international students hoping to work in the U.S. post-MBA is to think through a backup plan. So obviously have your ideal job in mind. Think about, where you want to see yourself post-MBA 5-10 years down the road, but also take a step back and think, okay, if that ideal job doesn't work out, what are, a couple other steps I might be able to take on the way there? And be flexible to adjust accordingly. Perhaps the best opportunity post-MBA, if you can't get the job in the U.S., is to work internationally for, a major multinational company and then pursue a transfer opportunity down the line. There are a lot of different ways in which or different paths to go down to get to those ideal post-MBA goals. And our Career Management Center is quite good about helping people think about that reflectively. And I think that's good advice, not only for international students, but for domestic students as well. The post-MBA job is certainly not a guarantee, and it can be a tough process to get there. So be flexible, be thoughtful about, what other paths you can take to reach the goals you've set for yourself.
Great. I think that's a great place to end the podcast. I just want to thank you all, Christina, Amanda, Michael, Annie, and Matthew, for joining the Touch MBA podcast. I had a lot of fun, and thanks once again.
Great. Thank you, Darren. And thanks to your listeners.
Thanks for listening to the Touch MBA podcast. Don't be shy. We have a mailing list. Go to touchmba.com and get yourself signed up. And we'll keep you posted with the best tips and insider interviews on how to get into your #1 school. You can also find us on Twitter and Facebook at Touch MBA. See you soon.